College Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Pushkar. Joining me is my co-host, Jackson McCarty. And for the first time ever, we are live at Newport on the Levee, heading up before Bengals NOW. Jackson, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's we've become quite a nomadic podcast.
Yes.
So what was it, 6-7 weeks now that we moved into the new spot?
Yeah.
Right before season, we were talking about how much we love it, and so naturally we decided to move again.
Of course.
But no, it's really an exciting experience because got to be here for the first Bengals NOW last week, was super cool. Mike Gesicki, Tanner Hudson on that week. This week, Andre Yoshivas, Chase Brown, more talented players coming throughout the weeks. We decided we want to be a part of it, be here before the show actually starts.
Yeah, and it gives a little bit of a break if you want to listen to a little bit of college football and high school talk before coming in and watching all those great professional players share a little bit about their lives and things like that. So we're going to just get right into it, though, with our high school discussion, as usual. And as you know, we've been keeping track of our guesses and predictions for the year so far. So I do have where we stand right now.
I'm glad you did that because I forgot to this week.
You're welcome. And so, Jackson, you are 7-3 right now.
Okay. Oh,
and
I had a real bad week.
Yep. And I am 6-4. So I did close that gap a little bit.
There we go. Yeah, because we felt – because I was, 5-1 last week?
Yes.
Or by the end
of
it
you were
all?
6-1 last week.
6-1 last week.
And you had picked Oak Hills over Middletown.
Yep.
And we both picked Highlands over Campbell County.
Yes.
And then we were both wrong on Cooper and Ryle.
Right. Oh, yeah, because Cooper actually got to be at that game. That was a really exciting one. Maybe the most memorable game that I've been to this year.
Yeah.
And memorable outcome. Especially because, when you see Jacob Savage, just destroy another man with a tackle and, just the weirdness that was going on with that game.
I really did love that I was texting you about the Louisville game that I was watching while you were at that game, and you just followed it up with, Jacob Savage just took a guy's head off. I'm really concerned about this.
Well, and the beauty of it really was that, Cooper was a team that we were kind of down on at that point.
Yeah.
But has now started to work their way back in momentum, doing a lot of good things. Very excited to see how they go. But obviously that was last week.
Yes.
And last week our episode was much more Kentucky forward. We're kind of recorrecting a little bit now. We're going more Ohio side, specifically because our game of the week this week, Anderson and Lebanon, two undefeated teams in the ECC. Very interesting to see how that one unfolds.
Yes, and obviously Anderson is one of those teams that you have talked to me about for the last year now.
Yeah,
just look at these guys and what they can do on a football field.
Yeah, as soon as we started the podcast, it was well known that Anderson was going to be a school that we would have to talk about more often than we would, right? Mm-hmm. And so, let's start with them. They're back like they never left. We know that they had a lot of graduates last year that obviously left the program. You had to retool a little bit. They figured it out pretty quick.
Yes.
They have a 151-24 point differential so far in this year. Feels pretty decent to me.
Yep.
They have the most points they've allowed is 10, which was to Cooper in a 52-10 point win. Then they beat West Claremont 49-7, Little Miami 50-7. So just keep on keeping on. Those are the exact same kinds of scores we saw all last year, and that trend just never quite shook off.
An offensive train that cannot be stopped.
Correct. Coach Evan Dreyer has figured out some kind of magic as far as an offensive playbook goes, and it just doesn't matter who's out there, he's going to get results.
Yes.
So let's talk about who's out there, though. Okay. Owen Scalf, their quarterback. A guy that we really didn't know anything about coming into the year, has looked very impressive so far. Over 900 yards, which leads the ACC. 76% completion rate. 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Then you add another over 100 yards on the ground, and then another touchdown there as well. The running back, Jordan Davis, has over 200 yards on 32 attempts, 6 touchdowns just by himself. Mm-hmm. You've got 3 200-yard receivers with Tegan Jalek, Tyson Weaver, Cooper Kathman, and then a couple studs on defense, Brady Kuhn, Ace Austin, Kamari Ty. Really, the Raptors as a whole, we came into the season when we talked about the conference previews that their defense was going to be what I at least expected to carry them through. That has not been the case. Their defense has been spectacular, but the offense is certainly putting up fireworks as well.
Yes. And I think the thing where you look at those guys that you mentioned on defense, Brady and Kamari and Ace, like, you're covering both the ground game and the passing game so well with just those players.
Well, yeah, Brady Kuhn gets in the backfield, you know, and already has, I think, 2.5, 3 sacks, something like that.
2.5 sacks, 8.5 for loss.
Right. And so it's anywhere you look, he's there. And then as soon as you try to air it out, while I don't believe Kamari or Ace have an interception yet, you know, it's a matter of time. Because those guys are pure ball hawks. Last year, I think they combined for like 5 or 6. Just superstar athletes.
Well, and an interception is great, but a deflection is also important as well. So.
Well, yeah, and if you've allowed, what did I say, 25 points or 24 points through this point in the season, like obviously you've proven enough to where at the beginning of the year when we came in and we're like, yeah, this is a team you need to watch. This is exactly why. We did not give that same treatment to Lebanon. Or I guess I didn't give that same treatment to Lebanon. And they have proven me not wrong inherently, but they've proven that they needed to be higher on the watch list, so to speak, coming into the year because they've looked very impressive.
Yes.
So they were 7-5 last year. They're already almost halfway to that mark, 3-0. 97-44 differential. Held Northmont to 5 points all game long. Beat Loveland by 3, then beat West Claremont by 35. So a really wide resume of performances and being able to show we can win it close, we can win it when we're supposed to win it, and we have that momentum. And a lot of that really does fall on Luke Failer, their quarterback. He's been super impressive to this point. 660 yards on 65% completion rate, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That right there is where his magic has been so far. Very efficient, knows where the ball needs to be, and even if he's not going to complete at a higher rate than like an Owen Scalf at this point in the year, he is going to make mistake-free ball at least.
I'll take 65% of my passes are completions if it means there's no interceptions.
Exactly, and I want to say that he had maybe 2 fumbles a couple weeks ago because I think he had he had almost 100 yards. He had 99 rush yards in the game against Loveland, and I want to say he had a couple fumbles, but it didn't impact them from winning that game. Yeah. You know, and he kept his head on straight. The quarterback managed to maintain, get it all done. Then when you look what's around him, Logan Schmenk, their running back, over 200 rush yards, 3 touchdowns to his name. You've got almost 400 combined receiving yards in Daniel Wallace and Nick Latar. Latar, I believe, was a top 19 athlete. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at their defense, Grayson McClure was a shining star in last week's final quarter because he had 2 pick sixes in the same game. So, and I believe Austin Brisky was there and got that one on tape. So you'll probably be playing that one right now. Speak of the devil, he just walked in for Bengals Now. Check that out. So, yeah, Lebanon presenting a lot of interesting things that I did not know that they had in their bag coming into the year. Very interested to see how that all unfolds in the game of the week.
Now, as you just said, there was some pieces of Lebanon you didn't know were there. How do you feel this matchup is? Do you want to give your prediction for Anderson?
Ultimately, Anderson is still Anderson. Yeah. You know, Coach Evan Dreyer has figured out a routine and a system and something that just continuously works even when he has a large amount of graduates in one year. The machine just kept on ticking. Hard to pick against them. I do think they win. They still have the home field advantage. Hard to really say that they're by any means an underdog. But I don't think that that's a discredit to Lebanon. I just think this is probably their first real, hit, so to speak.
Sure.
Then what they do after it's really what matters.
Let me put it. If they keep it close like they did against Loveland, do you view that as a victory?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, and especially because you'll have more opportunities down the road. You can be 8-2, 9-1, get into the playoffs, make a lot of noise. You know, we've seen that from GCL South schools constantly, or in Kentucky, like Cooper still has a really good chance of doing that. I know that was the exact wrong team to pick because they were the only undefeated in Kentucky up until the state title game. But good teams lose. Yeah, it's just about responding to it. Obviously not a position Lebanon's been in before, but, capitalizing on it's what matters here.
Okay. Yeah. And I will go with Anderson as well, just from my understanding of don't bet against Anderson that I've already learned early on this year.
Yeah, that Cooper game scarred us a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It did.
All right, let's move on to the next one. GCL South, always going to provide great games. Yes. I expect no difference here. Elder going to LaSalle to play the Lancers. So obviously when we did our season previews, I had to leave one of these 2 teams off because you have Moeller and you have St. X as your other 2 options. and
Yes.
those are perennially great. It was like a third of the top 19 list just within that school.
Well, and Moeller was
within
one
those
of
two
your
schools.
just top teams to watch across
Correct.
all of the conferences.
Yeah,
things like that.
They're star-studded. So when you have two teams that kind of are fighting more or less to be like, hey, no, we are very much where the GCL South can run through in Elder and LaSalle, I think it almost provides for a more interesting matchup.
Yes.
So let's talk about Elder first. Since they're the away team, we've got 2 undefeateds. 3 of the 4 GCL South schools undefeated right now, worth mentioning. The one that has picked up a loss, not the one you'd expect, Moeller. But they also play teams from every state but Ohio.
I was going to say, was it a team from like Texas?
Correct. Yeah, I believe so.
Wow, really?
It might have, or maybe it was South Carolina. I don't know. It was, you get the point.
Yeah.
So with Elder, obviously, like I mentioned, 3-0 wins over Mount Zion Prep, which is a school from Maryland, 34-0. Covcath 28-20, and then Springboro 21-7.
Yes.
The players that you really need to keep an eye on, Caden Estep, their quarterback, very interesting guy, really a dual threat thing as you would sort of expect in the GCL South. Almost 500 pass yards on 75% completion rate, and then on almost 175 rush yards. So gets it done both ways there. Tommy Becker, the running back, I loved that these are not rounded up numbers. It was just perfectly clean. 200 rush yards, 50 touches, 4 yards per carry. Just, it doesn't work out that well.
That's
that
the
often.
math that journalism majors like us like to do.
It's just smooth. You never get smooth stats that often. And then a couple of defensive players that you want to shout out, Alex Dugan, who has 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and then Derek Oran, 18 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 5.5 tackles for loss. So playmakers on both sides of the ball, you're not just super worried about their passing attack. Their running game is really what'll scare you, and then you return it with a very stout defense.
Yes.
With LaSalle, since we had already kind of talked about Lebanon and not really presenting, or me not really having them on my radar to start the year, I want to say doubly so for LaSalle's quarterback. Javier Carter was not really a name that I knew I should be watching this year. Week 1 of final quarter, me and Austin Brisky left that episode being like, oh, that was the guy that was like how did we not catch that before it happened? Dude looks phenomenal, and the stats might not blow you away right now. Also worth mentioning, they are 3-0 wins over Colerain, Northmont, Fairmont. But Javier Carter, 349 yards, 55-ish% completion rate, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick, but then you add another 215 on the ground, 3 touchdowns there. Like, he just finds a way to get it done. He had a really nice off-platform throw that we showed in the FQ Week 1. Just a really talented dude, and jumps out a lot on tape. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you watched
I think you showed me that play, and that was a very nice throw.
Exactly, yeah. Javier Carter just kind of has that ability where, like, maybe it won't show up on the stats as much as you'd like to right now.
Sure.
It's going to continue showing up on tape, and that's really what matters.
Okay.
So around him, you've got David Malone, Nasir Salam, both over 100 rushing yards. They kind of have that more committee approach. And then Colin Wooldridge, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, leads the team with 34 tackles. So more isolated, a little less proven, I'd say, out of LaSalle this year. But coming into the year, I did think that they were going to be a better team than Elder. I did include them on that preview and ultimately chose to leave Elder off. So I'm going to let you go first here. Which direction are you leaning?
Okay, so I'll talk you through my process here because you have 2 quarterbacks that you've described to me that I go, okay, they have a little bit of a difference in what they're bringing to the field. And it's that Carter has that run threat, Caden has a little bit more of an arm that I like to see. Where I am immediately going is, will Elder have the defense to stop the run and shut down the LaSalle offense, or at least limit it a little bit more than it may have been in these past games? And I think that is why I will go with the Panthers. Okay. Just for that little bit of option of a little bit more passing, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, things like that.
That makes sense, and totally viable. I kind of was flipping back and forth on it, to be honest. I'm going to lean Javier Carter and the Lancers' direction just because I think when you have a guy who can really change the direction of a game, especially at the high school level, that you kind of need to lean in that direction. Sure. And while it might not always pay off for you, when it does, it just feels correct. because, like, I really do think Javier Carter is going to be the most talented athlete on that field. So give me the Lancers, hometown or home crowd.
Home field advantage.
Exactly.
All that. Yeah.
And they'll continue 2-4-0, giving Elder their first loss there.
I think there's no wrong pick with this.
Well,
game
there will be
in a
on
way.
Friday.
There will be.
but right now. Yes. All right, so let's look at game number 3 here. The only Kentucky game that we have, or the only Kentucky team we have to mention.
Okay.
And actually kind of ironic that this team's coming up because Reagan Holgate's coming in, and they were her basketball team all season long. The Aiken Falcons going up against Lloyd Memorial, the Juggernauts. There it is. Willie, did you hear me shout you out? Okay, good. Sorry, Reagan was giving an approving thumbs up for that one. So the CMAC was a weird one for me coming into the year because, like, Taft, we knew was very interesting last year. Have high expectations for them again. Aiken was a 6-4 team. Really didn't know what I was supposed to think about them. Didn't include them in any of the preview stuff. They're again proving their worth early and quick. They're 3-0 so far. 2 shutout wins over Clark Montessori and Belmont, and then a close one, 24-20 against Reading. The guys you need to know about: Andre Underwood, their quarterback. Again, football's pretty much quarterback sport. You got to have one of those to be super competitive, especially at the high school level. Andre Underwood is helping with that. 480 yards, over 60% completion rate, 8 touchdowns, 1 pick. The big storyline, I think, for him as their season moves forward, hasn't had to throw the ball more than 16 times in a game yet.
Interesting.
Yes, he said it was a 16, it was a 15, and I think it was like a 9, because they get out to these leads and then they just kind of can keep them and hold them and be fine. What happens when he's asked to do more? That's something that I think needs to be monitored for the Falcons, something that I'm not even necessarily saying is going to be a negative. I just think is something that needs to be answered before I can feel super good about them making some kind of playoff run or anything like that. But around him, Romello Mitchell, maybe the most under-talked about receiver in the conference at least. 173 yards, 8 receptions, 3 touchdowns. So, dude gets it done. A very high clip. They had another receiver, which I forgot to write his name down, and I do feel bad about it. But he had like 4 catches, like 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. It's like giant chunk plays.
Yeah, okay.
That is paying off in dividends for the Falcons right now. And then just a neat stat for their defense. They have 4 forced fumbles so far and 5 sacks. Nobody has more than 1 of each. It's a very well-rounded approach on their defense. Kind of a similar theme across both sides of this because Lloyd has another very similar stat to that, which makes this such an interesting matchup to me.
I would say to me every the line knows that they just need to pressure the offensive line and open it up for a linebacker, or if they can find that, when they find that gap, they take it and go after. It doesn't have to be just one guy.
Exactly.
You're not looking for the Trey Hendrickson who's
Right.
just trying to get in there type thing.
Well, yeah, it's more or less we see it in basketball where it's like player dominated versus team dominated.
Yes.
Very team dominated approaches on these not one specific standout coming from either side here. But when you do look at Lloyd, last week we talked about teams that we think could/should be running Kentucky football this year within the tri-state. Lloyd was not mentioned in that conversation. They should have been.
Okay.
Because they're a silent contender. Like we talked about Ryle, we talked about Cooper, we talked about Highlands in that whole ordeal. Lloyd was very notable in their absence, and I'm glad that we get to talk about them this week. They're 3-0. They have not had a game that's been particularly close. Beat Newcalf 47-14, beat Newport 46-6, beat Connor 40-27. That was a lot of Newport while we're sitting on the Levee. Rather unfortunate that week 1 is how we start that.
Yeah, it's fine.
The players that you need to know about: Caleb Evans, their quarterback, efficient beast, 605 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1 pick. Clean, easy football. Running backs: Avery Conrad, Lincoln Tomlinson, very much a committee approach. 8 touchdowns between the two of them, almost 300 yards, or over 300 yards rather. Receiver Colton Barger is a sophomore, has 331 yards already on the season and 6 touchdowns. He has, 75% of the passing touchdowns? 6 of 8?
Yes.
75%. Over half of the receiving yards. Dude the ball is going through him, and it just continues to work every single time.
Magnets in his glove.
Exactly. And then again, like I said, very similar approaches. They have 11 sacks already through 3 games, which is absurd to me. Brandon Carter leading that with 1.5 sacks. So very much a committee approach. Again, just whoever can get to it gets to it. Very selfless defensive football.
And, you mentioned that we brought up Cooper and Ryle and Highlands last week, and it did partially play into just the fact that those are the teams on the list in front of us. But I know when we talked about Lloyd, I believe it was before either the Newcastle game or the Newport game.
Yeah.
It was that little bit of time where we just didn't know what was coming out of them. And I think you're right that from what I have seen from all of the teams so far, of those four that we mentioned, they kind of feel to me, it might be them and Highlands as favorites right now.
Entirely possible.
Obviously, I can easily be proven wrong, but
I will say I do still think it's Ryle, even like with Cooper
Sure.
winning, just because it's so hard to beat a team twice. And like while Cooper did manage it, it's hard to bet against Jacob Savage and Virax and all those guys. Point being, it is still a very talented group there, and Lloyd has earned their seat at the table, without a question.
Yes.
So do you want me to pick here first, or would you like to take the wheel?
I'm gonna just go ahead and I'll pick Lloyd.
Okay.
Because I do think that the offensive attack is going to be a lot for Aiken to handle. Like you mentioned, there's 4 forced fumbles, 5 sacks. That's a lot of production on defense, but I don't know if they're going to be able to, if the offensive side is going to handle the Lloyd defense as well with 11 sacks already.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Just because we haven't seen what I want to see from Underwood in terms of like volume yet. Like he has looked very good in what they've needed of him so far. Until we get that, and maybe it will be this week, and he proves me wrong, and I can put it to bed and not worry about it. Absolutely. I'm going to go with Lloyd as well. So splitting on that middle one, but agreeing on the other two.
There we go.
Cool. Now we do have a couple of Tri-State teams off this week on the college side. We do still have a couple that have some interesting games coming.
Yeah. So, and I'll give us our update. You are currently 9-1, and I am 8-2 in college bets.
There we go.
Do you know the one that you missed?
I should, but I don't.
You picked Miami over Rutgers.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
I did. And I think, and we won't talk about Miami that much this week, only because they are on a bye week or on an off week. I think there's concern. I think it's good for them to be off this week. They're going to be playing UNLV next week. Gives them a little bit more time to kind of figure things out, move forward from there, and hopefully come out swinging. In that game.
Well, and they played two, P4 teams.
Two Big Ten teams.
There is still some recalibration to do, obviously. Like Chuck Martin, he does have higher expectations for his Red Hawks. But you do still have to manage, that's what your non-con was. You kind of expect it in a certain sense.
And so much of that roster is brand new, transfers in, recruits, things like that, they're going to have to figure, they're going to find their mesh, and I think it's going to be happening more closer to the MAC season than worrying about it right now in non-conference.
Totally.
So, the other team that is off is Louisville. They did beat James Madison. As I mentioned, we were texting about that game because I was like, oh, this is crazy that James Madison is leading through like the second quarter.
The Dukes kind of have something. And we figured out that Matthew Sluka now plays there.
Yes.
Which I did not know.
Guy.
Yeah, the old UNLV quarterback that entered the portal like very early in the season last year. That caught me very off guard. It was kind of fun because Alonzo Barnett has been their starter, I think, for this is his second year now.
Yes.
Regardless, shout out to the Dukes. That was kind of an impressive performance, even with Louisville coming out on top.
Yeah. But we have 3 games that are happening, and they are all going to be home games for the relatively local teams.
Beautiful.
So we'll start right in the heart of Cincinnati, in Clifton, at Newport Stadium. Cincinnati is hosting Northwestern State. If you will remember, this was a team that you and I both had to look up when we were originally talking about UC's schedule because we were not sure where that school was from.
And I don't remember the answer.
Louisiana, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm glad that our educational sessions within the podcast work so well.
I did have a friend. I have a friend that's here visiting for the week, and I said, "Do you know where Northwestern State is?" And he's like, "No, but they're like the Devils, right? That's their mascot." I was like, "Yeah, actually, that's really good.
Really?
Good job." And he's like, "All right, halfway." I'm like, "Yep."
Bonus points to that guy.
But Cincinnati played Bowling Green last week. It was a home game. Here is Here's the big stat. Brendan Sorsby, 17 for 24, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, had 14 yards per play, 40 rush yards.
So when we started the season, I proclaimed that Brendan Sorsby was the best quarterback or collegiate quarterback in the state of Ohio. Those are the performances that I expected out of him whenever I made that statement.
Yes. Here's my concern.
Okay.
How many rushing yards? He had 40 rushing yards. How many rushing yards total do you think that the Bearcats had?
If the QB is getting 40, you need to be getting like 125. But since you're setting me up like this, I'm assuming that it's like 70.
He was the highest rusher on the team. Tui Walker had 32.
Okay.
And Evan Pryor had 33.
So what is that, 100?
So that it's 105 between the three of them. That is concerning to me.
Understandable.
Estimated points added when they are on a passing play. This is from GameOnPaper.com. 4 points.
Okay.
Positive 4 points.
Yeah, fantastic.
The estimated points added when rushing, negative 12.85.
Ooh. Yeah, that didn't work.
So in essence, it took 2 passing plays to make
to negate the running play.
A running play. That is concerning to me. I don't think, and I'll just say this up front, Cincinnati will probably win this game. Northwestern State played Minnesota.
What a bold take, Brad.
I know. They played Minnesota. They had Minnesota. The Golden Gophers scored 66 points to nothing, and Northwestern State had 46 yards on the day.
World-renowned offense, Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Yes. PJ Fleck, he's rowing that boat. They're having a great time.
Northern Dave Aranda?
Nothing against an FCS team that is coming to play an FBS team. I
It's
don't
a
think
paycheck.
that it's going to be that different.
It's a paycheck, except for like very rare, App State Michigan games. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
genuine, one-of-a-kind, generational performances.
And I think that Bowling Green is not a bad MAC school by any means. They're not the top of the conference. I think they're firmly in like that upper middle half.
Yeah, this is a 7-5 school.
Yes. To me, only being able to generate 30-ish yards for your running backs and have your quarterback run more makes me question what's going to happen when they get into Big 12 play.
This is a kind of game that you need to trot out 3 or 4 different running backs, split the quarters and just be like, where does it work, where does it not? This is a game that we need to evaluate who actually is at the front of the helm here, because if it's not working, it's got to fix immediately.
I agree with that. I think it's either figure this out as a possible 3-down back or figure out who are your first 2 and who comes in for third downs and, red zone type.
Use
plays.
the whole depth chart. Figure out what works and what doesn't. Because if it's not going to work against Northwestern State.
Yes.
Sorry.
It's okay.
If it's not going to work against Northwestern State, it's not going to work whenever you get into your actual conference schedule.
Yeah, I know they start off with Kansas this year. And Kansas is a fine school.
They're interesting. Kind of.
Interesting, but I think Cincinnati on paper should be beating them.
I agree.
Should arguably be running and passing all over them, and there's still 2 weeks until that happens. We'll kind of see what happens between now and but yeah, I'm going with Cincinnati. I'm sure you are as well.
Easy one there.
I assumed we
Very
would
easy.
have to make
we don't have to
quite a pick here.
We don't have to build up to that one.
I'll be quite honest. I don't know if we're going to be splitting on any of these games.
Probably shouldn't be. There's something has gone wrong. If we
Yes. So then the next game, this is a 7. Once again, 3:30 at Newport for Cincinnati. Next game is at 7 p.m. The Ohio State Buckeyes are playing the Ohio University Bobcats.
Okay.
Bobcats are coming up to the shoe. I think this is going to be a fun game to watch.
Before we actually talk game,
Okay.
the Ohio's coach thinking that Caleb Downs is a receiver. Do we think that it was intentional? Do we think that was just like a slip of the mind?
As you and I were talking a little bit before, when we were sitting here beforehand, and you brought that up, I did look. I was like, I want to see what exactly he said and stuff like that. And it's like, he just was like, the best receiving duo out there right now.
But he said it so many times.
Yes, and I think confidently. I would like to believe that a head coach of a Division I program knows the players for the most part, but I also think there is a chance that he just was thinking of somebody else and somebody had mentioned Caleb Downs, or in his head he was already going, oh, we need to talk about the wide receivers. And when the question was posed of Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs are like two of the best players in the country on the same team, he just kind of grouped it together. It's like, yeah, just the wide receivers.
You're right.
Things like that. It also could, as some blogs were saying, could have been intentional. Get under the skin of the Buckeyes.
But that's just such a weird way to do it.
Yeah.
You know? Because, like, Carnell Tate, very talented receiver in his own right, deserves to be mentioned alongside Jeremiah Smith as
Absolutely.
a very talented receiving duo. Just, you know, it's just that being the storyline, so to speak, going into the game is kind of just goofy, I guess.
Well, and it's one of those things where it's like they arguably don't even have just a great wide receiver duo. They have like three of the best wide receivers on the field at any given time.
Well, and the seventh best receiver on their roster will probably still be a second-round pick or higher in the NFL at a certain point. Ohio State is wide receiver university.
Absolutely. And you still have Bo Jackson, who's a running threat. Like, this is just it's one of those things where I go, where was the mix-up? Or is this really what you're thinking is the way to play this?
Which, and I don't know. Obviously, we won't ever have an actual answer to it, but Ohio, while they will get overlooked in this, and we will both pick Ohio State, they are a team that you need to be keeping an eye on within the MAC this year.
Yes, because at this very moment, I think they are the front runner to win the MAC.
Yeah, that's
or at least
fair.
to finish first in the MAC.
The actual conference title game.
The championship game is always weird every year, and like Chuck Martin said during MAC Media Days, it was something like, I'm getting tired of playing Ohio. I'm getting tired of playing Toledo in these games. Like, I want to go back to the conferences, things like that, which is very funny. But Ohio State last week, I don't know if you noticed, did dominate Grambling State, 70-0.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little bit of discussion of like taking out starters for FCS schools because of just, hey, let's not put the wear and tear and risk getting injured and things like that.
There's really no sense in it. Really, after half, both teams should just put the backups in.
Oh, absolutely. And I know that saying, I think, came out in the third. I don't believe he was playing in the fourth.
I don't think so.
And so
admittedly, I didn't watch a whole lot of that game. There was some better stuff going on in the window.
I started watching that game, and I started watching Oregon, Oklahoma State, and when both of them were at like 35-0, I went, okay, I don't think I need to keep watching these games.
Oregon, Oklahoma State is a real weird one, and I know like that's not our jurisdiction.
It's not our jurisdiction, but
oof,
I'll still talk about it.
That is a horrifying situation. Dan Lanning might be the guy.
He's also like the guy that makes you want to run through a brick wall.
Yeah.
While Mike Gundy, I don't know if he will. I'd be curious to see if he's still coached by the end of the season.
I think, okay, to reroute it a little bit back to Ohio State.
Yes.
Just because, I think Ryan Day is a very good coach.
Yeah. I don't think he's the best coach in the Big Ten.
I think Dan Lanning is the closest to a Saban, Kirby, Dabo realm guy that we've had since, I guess, Kirby or Dabo. Like,
so,
he feels like a guy who could dominate the sport.
Can you remind me, was he one of the guys that Bama tried to get before Kalen DeBoer?
All those rumors, because apparently Norvell was their number one.
Sure.
And so, like, after the Norvell rumor, I didn't really know what to believe and what not to believe. I think he got an Oregon extension pretty soon after that.
I think that's what it was, because that was the thing, was that he was getting rumored and then got extended, and then it was like, okay, well, now it's going to be
But it's hard to ever really know,
For sure.
So I think his name was probably put out there, and Oregon was like, not happening.
But yeah, I do think that he is not a coach to be messed with. I think he is one he's arguably like a better Mike Leach in a way, where he finds new ways to approach the game each time. I mean, you saw the way that they handled the Ohio State game last year and kind of understanding the rules. And I mean, to me, that is
it's just clever.
It's clever, and it's finding the ways to work around the game that other people aren't already looking for. And that's something that I don't think Ohio State is always doing with Ryan Day and with the coordinators that he brings in. I think Chip Kelly was pretty solid, surprisingly, last year. I think that the defense is holding on to what they had last year and waiting to see what influence Matt Patricia actually has on them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So overall, though, Ohio State.
Yes,
wins that
overall
game.
Ohio State. I will mention this. Julian Sayin was 18 for 19 against Grambling State, 306 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Bo Jackson had 108 rushing, 1 touchdown. And going into this game earlier this week, they were a 32 and a, or Ohio State is a 32 and a half point favorite.
Okay.
Now, Ohio is a fun team.
I might take Ohio to cover that if I was.
Yeah, if we were doing that, I actually do agree with that. Where I'm like 28, 21, not crazy to me.
No. Yeah.
They beat West Virginia 17 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Parker Navarro, the quarterback. I talked about him when we were previewing the MAC. I think is right now the most exciting quarterback in the MAC.
I would agree with that.
He was 22 for 30 against West Virginia, 235 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 3 sacks, but almost 100 rushing yards. And you are not seeing rushing quarterbacks like Parker Navarro right now.
No. Especially like since DeQuan Finn's trying to find his footing and all that, because like I think that was the primary rival, at least in my head.
Yeah.
Because DeQuan Finn has proven himself at the MAC level to be like a solidified guy. Parker Navarro outshining him thoroughly right now.
Yeah, and I think that'll just I'm hoping that by the time that the MAC conference games come around, Finn has kind of figured that footing out. But the big target that Navarro has is Chase Hendricks. He had 8 catches on 9 targets, 121 yards and 1 touchdown against West Virginia. And there was a really fun shot of the whole team celebrating in the locker room after the win that the MAC put up as like vote on the photo of the week, and it was that. But there was a crazy Central Michigan catch, like reaching behind his head one-handed, and I was like, that needs to be the pick.
I don't think I got to see that one, but I need to. I for sure need to.
Go on the MAC Twitter. I think it's MAC Sports, and it's really great. But that is the Ohio State-Ohio game.
Yes.
Also, something cool that I did see is that the Ohio and Ohio State marching bands are going to be playing together at halftime. They have they're mixing their sets. It's, I believe, the Olatangi High School band director is the one that's creating the drill for them. Okay. He marched at Ohio University and is now closer to Ohio State, and so they're doing like a mesh of like, I mean, you've seen Ohio State's crazy movements and things like that, and then but also bringing the more like drill-based formation sets that Ohio does, and having all of those schools together. And I think that's really cool for those kids.
Oh, absolutely. Once you're keeping it in state, you might as well like try to make it a pride thing almost.
And it's the battle of which university is really the representative of Ohio universities.
Wonder how that's going to go.
But yeah, let's move on now to our last game was Kentucky against Ole Miss.
Last week.
Yeah, from last week. Yes. Kentucky lost 30-23.
Kept it close. Leading for most
Kentucky
of it.
continues to surprise me.
Yes. They're just weird. They're weird enough to work.
Yeah, and I think so.
Like, it's not good football. It's just weird football.
So my cousin, who married with my cousin, UK grad, big Kentucky fan. They went down to the game, and I was talking to him at breakfast that morning, and I was like, "So what do you think of Zach Calzada?" And he was like, "At this point, just like I'd rather just see him go out, bring in Cutter Boley like later in the year."
Yeah.
And they did try that for the last bits of the game. They did so Cutter Boley came in the 4th. He was 1 for 3 for 33 yards. Zach Calzada was 15 for 30, 134 yards. The big piece was Seth McGowan, 93 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yes.
I'm curious to see what they do this week.
So go ahead, remind us who they're playing.
They're playing
this week.
Eastern Michigan.
Okay.
At 7:30 in Lexington.
I honestly, because is Cutter a true freshman?
I believe so. Let me double check.
Yeah,
but I believe so.
Because if he is, you have the 4-game eligibility rule that is now a thing where he can play in 4. I think you give him the entirety of Eastern Michigan. Oh, is he a redshirt freshman?
No, but let me put this in right now because it was earlier today that I didn't read because I was running around doing other things.
Yep.
Zach Calzada is being reported as injured
Oh, there you go.
And Cutter Boley is going to start for the Wildcats against Eastern Michigan.
Even if Zach Calzada was healthy enough to play this game, I just think it makes more sense objectively to have Cutter do it. Because, again, like I said, if he does have that red shirt to work with, you have 4 games total, so you're down 1 already. You have 3 more after that. I think you just give him all of EMU to just see what's up, just to kind of expedite that development process without having to commit to him as an actual starter.
And I will say this, he is a redshirt freshman, so,
okay. So
doesn't even matter if he doesn't.
But still, like, I think that at this point, you need to know what you've got in him. You need to figure out if you do need to go a different direction in the portal or otherwise next year. EMU's not a game that Calzada's really going to figure much out in either if you had him healthy.
Well, and here's my thing. Like, we talked about the commit for Kentucky locally here.
Matt Ponatowski.
And, if he comes in, he can redshirt a year. By the end of his redshirt year, Cutter is a junior.
Yes.
That gives you another year still, where even if Cutter decides to transfer out for a senior year or something like that, if he gets injured, it would be unfortunate, but if he does, you still have a backup plan in place of here's another fresh talent to try and put in and see what we can develop out of that.
It's also worth noting that you might, and I know that this is not Stoops' job by any means, but it might not be a bad idea to let Cutter get some reps on tape, like a full game, because it might not be Stoops' job next year. I think that there's enough reason for concern. Now, at this point in the year, I would not say that his seat is that hot, because put up really close against Kentucky, or Ole Miss rather, does continue to surprise in many ways. But the plan needs to be established for UK moving forward.
And I think at this point, it's still a likely 4 to 5 win season.
Yeah.
And for some Kentucky fans that I've talked to, it's look at our schedule. That's just going to happen.
But Ole Miss was a winnable game, and they proved that they were not.
But I don't think they came into it thinking it was.
I think
after last fans,
I think
who would be coming for Stoops' job.
I think before the year, that's a fair statement. I think after their first week, and Simmons throwing multiple picks in week 1, I think you could come out of that being oh no, this is totally, this is a rebuilding year for the Rebels, and we can capitalize on that. They almost did, but that doesn't really count, And Ole Miss is a team they beat last year, at a more strong Ole Miss team they beat last year. So I think that they kind of were in they were in range to do it. They just missed.
Yeah, and this will be their second non-conference game. They still have Tennessee Tech, and then they have Louisville to close out the season. Like we've said, I think they go 3-1 in non-conference.
Yep.
I'm just curious to see if they are able to get a win in conference, where at best they would go 2-6 because it would be the Auburn, Vandy games.
Yeah, because they didn't have Mississippi State.
They don't have Mississippi State. They have
they didn't
Georgia.
have Arkansas.
They
didn't
have Tennessee. They've got good teams
Right.
that they're playing, and so.
And again, Auburn might be a good team.
Yeah.
They're a confusing one right now. But Baylor is also confusing. That's who Auburn beat close, and it's a whole mess.
Well, Auburn's one of those teams where it's just I think people didn't expect them to do as well coming out of transfer portals and things like that, but Hugh Freeze is kind of showing he can recruit and he can get transfers in who can make an immediate impact, and that's what arguably college coaching is somewhat about right now.
Well, I wouldn't have put Jackson Arnold on my top 10 transfer quarterbacks of the year, but early he looks like he should have been inside that list. Also, Carson Beck for some reason.
Yes.
Just guys that this is just a good year for guys that had very confusing and large questions around them. Regardless, big game to see what Cutter Boley can do for the Wildcats. Obviously, like you mentioned, Calzada going to be out for the game. I will take Kentucky. I'm going to say that the UK offense is more impressive with Cutter this week than it would have been with Zach. I think they win by 30. Yeah, I'm going to go. I think they win by 30.
Okay, interesting. So I will say this. I think the defense is the thing to watch with Kentucky.
Okay.
They are exciting, and there's a lot of – it was kind of the same thing last year where there's some studs on that team, in that defense.
Yeah.
that I think are making a huge impact, and if they don't go to the draft, could go to another team and you know, be a little bit more impactful
Absolutely.
overall. Eastern Michigan last week. I'm not going to pretend that I'm debating this game because Eastern Michigan last week did lose to Long Island University 28-23.
Yes.
The first FCS loss in like over a decade or something like that. It's one of those games where you just go, oh, they're in a
like that was
arguably
real
worse
bad.
spot than I go on the college football subreddit sometimes, and I have never seen somebody so immediately get like, I hate my team, I'm worried about my team, than an Eastern Michigan fan who posted like right after, like, this coach is ruining this team, blah 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 blah, and I was like, oh, interesting for EMU, and so I will be going with the Wildcats as
Of
well.
course.
I do think your point. It'll be interesting to me if they can shut out
Yeah.
the Eagles, or at least keep them very low scoring while getting the offense going and cooking on their own.
I also want to change the verbiage of my prediction a little bit.
Okay.
Cutter Boley will have the most impressive quarterback stat line of a UK quarterback so far this year.
Yes.
I think that's a cleaner way of putting it.
Yes, that's better.
Yes. I think that after the game, Wildcat fans will be like, that's something that we haven't seen this year. And I think that could lead to some real interesting conversations for this podcast down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. But like I said, so those are the 3 games. We'll be talking about Miami and Louisville next week. Notably, the games on Fox this Saturday, if you're looking for what you want to watch. Oregon is at Northwestern at noon, and Oregon State is at Texas Tech at 3:30. I think those are still fun games. I mean, like we talked about Dan Lanning, that Oregon game is going to be fun to watch, even if it may end up being a bit of a bloodbath. And I like Oregon State and I like Texas Tech as like ideas of teams.
Well, Texas Tech is like what A&M was supposed to be.
Yes.
Like, they got the payroll and they're like doing something with it.
They are getting the Lubbock oil money going through. And,
But it's working. It's not
yes.
just like, again, what A&M did, where they like bought the number one class and then went 7-5.
But Tech's been also just buying in so many different sports,
Correct.
like softball, like, now like football. And it was an offensive lineman who they got to flip that is just crazy.
Otherworldly.
But yeah, it's good. It's interesting to kind of watch how things like oil prices and crypto and like somebody was talking. I saw on Twitter today, Oracle stock went way up, and Michigan fans were like, "Great, we're going to get another quarterback to come flip to us." And I mean that in like the most serious way, because they were like, "Oh yeah, like our biggest donor is Oracle."
Oracle and Dave Portnoy. It funds the Michigan Wolverine program.
Barstool stock going up.
All right. Well, obviously, like we said, we've got more episodes to come talking about the UK quarterback experience and all that good stuff. Where can they find us, Brad?
You can find us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, under the tab FOX19 NOW Sports. You will also find where you'll find these episodes every Thursday. You will find the Gold Standard every Friday, and you will find Offsides with Gabby Sorrentino every Monday morning.
Yeah.
And
then
also the video
Bengals
versions. And you'll also be able to see us leading off for Bengals Now on Wednesdays, right at Newport at the Levee. We'll be starting about 4:30, going up till 5:30, and then Bengals Now starts at 6.
And then if you can't watch Bengals, or if you can't make it to Bengals Now live, Thursday nights, 11:30 on Fox19 Now.
I'm glad you remembered that, because I did forget that part.
Friday at 2 as well, according to Austin Brisky.
Friday at 2. There we go. But yeah, that is all that we have for this week. So thank you all for listening and watching. And if you're coming out live, we look forward to seeing you. But we will see you next time.
Have a good one.